All right, it looks like I'm actually just about to introduce the guest onto the stream. So so you guys just met Voice My Ambition. He's part of the Polkadot ecosystem, so he knows quite a bit on that side of the crypto community. But then we also have BallietBran from the HEX community. How's it going, Bran?
Hey, what's up, my friend? Can you hear me okay before I get into, saying hi and stuff?
Yeah, dude, your audio is perfect. Yeah,
okay,
it's great.
Cool. Nice, dude. Yeah, doing pretty good, man. How are you tonight?
Not too bad. Yeah, I'm just I'm still getting used to the streaming thing. So it's like kind of hard to like do all this stuff on the screen simultaneously because it's like I'm trying to do a screen share. I'm like, shit, like there might be somebody trying to join. So getting used to like that whole setup. I'm using StreamYard right now, but I did find some videos like to do some like other setups on the streaming. So still getting kind of used to like the options that I have.
Yeah, man, I totally know what you mean. I mean, I don't know, only kind of been streaming for, I don't know, like 5 or 6 months, something like that. And I've had a YouTube channel for the one that I have had it for like over 10 years, but same thing for me as well. When I first started streaming, it was because of the Discourse Syndicate and hanging out with Dollar Cost a couple times. And I tell you what, StreamYard takes a little bit of getting used to, but one of the things that I want to get into, it's significantly more advanced, but is the OBS, and that's just like another step up for me personally that I'm not there yet.
Yeah, so I have so like right now the display I have is set up through XSplit, but OBS Studio, there's a couple. I'll link you with the video I found on that as well. I sent it over to Motley Investor, so he might be further along with like the streaming setup. But it goes into like there's like a video tutorial on how to set up stuff through OBS Studio so that like you don't have to like wing it and stuff and try to like figure it out like on your own. So I haven't tried it out yet, which maybe I should have before doing this stream. But yeah, it's great. Definitely great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. I know recently you were on with Dollar Cost and RG3 again, if I recall, and or maybe it was just you and Dollar Cost the other day, but you're kind of talking about like the T share like in the future and kind of maybe this market like competing with Ethereum, like the cost per Ethereum, and I thought that was pretty cool, man. You've got a lot of really I don't know, well-formed insights, and to my knowledge, like how long have you been in Hex? I know what, like 3 or 4 months maybe, or
yeah, actually, that's a good question. So I got into Hex towards right at the end of August. So yeah, actually, roughly 3 to 4 months. Nice. And at the time, so I know DCC because I've been friends with DCC for quite a while. I think we met in the Decentraland community sometime around March of. Actually, maybe even briefly before that, but it was around like March of this year. Right. And I knew he was into Hex, so that's where I first like started meeting like other community members. I wasn't like I didn't actually own any Hex at the time, but I did follow like Richard Hart's videos throughout like that entire year, so I did know of Hex when it first launched on, I think it was Bitcoin.com, like Roger Vere's exchange. I think he was one of the first ones that listed Hex on the exchange. And I remember at the time, like I was looking at Bitcoin.com, seeing like if I could sign up for the exchange, which you could probably bypass with like a VPN or whatever. But I just remember I was like, I'm gonna just wait to see like when it hits like Uniswap or something like that. So and yeah, and I know the Hex community, there was like a lot of like negative stigma that happens over the course of the months, like just a combination of just a lot of like either misunderstanding or just having like a dislike for like Richard Hart. But it seems like it's a very like it's a love-hate relationship when it comes to Hex. For me, I mean, I just look at it as an opportunity. I'm like, this is an amazing opportunity. Like, I'm like, we're all in this market, truthfully, to like make money. Like, exactly. That's the whole point in my mind. Like when dabbling with like cryptocurrency. So If you look at the tokenomics for Hex, they're amazing. Like there's a lot of potential in terms of like price discovery, and we'll actually go into like definitely detail on a band from Germany here, Bandit Credit. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name right, but we'll go into price predictions for sure for Hex. It's looking really good. It's looking awesome on the charts. So
I think it's the reason I asked like how long you'd been in because I know first off, Hex is only like a little over a year old, so it's not like you can be in for that long even if you were there early. But anyways, my point in asking that was I think it was really cool. I don't really like I got into crypto in like 2017 and used to follow like a whole bunch of alts and all that stuff, and then kind of after Hex launched, it was like just Hex that I started following. But long story short, it was cool that you had picked up from what Dollar Cost was saying that you had picked up like the shares so quickly and kind of some of the tokenomics that you mentioned or the game theory and at the end of the day, I think you're totally right that sure there's a lot of like tribalism and politics and stuff like that in crypto, but at the end of the day, just here to make money. And if you can be in a good project, I know you guys are, in a handful of other ones that Dollar Cost has mentioned a handful of times. And yeah, if you can make money and make a profit and, make some friends too, then I think that's net positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And definitely one of the things that drew me to Hex was the amount of community engagement on Twitter, because that's something that a lot, like there's so many people that they don't realize how big like the Hex community really is. This is actually true for like a lot, like like for example, if you go onto like Reddit and you look up, let's say like a new project coin or whatever like that, or something like that, you might see like a low subscriber count, but like most of the community, like it really depends on like what community is. And like in the case for Hex, like it has a huge one of the biggest followings really on Twitter for that product. So you have like Hex, and then you have Ethereum is obviously like a really big community, but in the case for like most of the discussion and the community members for Hex are engaged on Twitter, which is actually even amazing because like Twitter is where you get the best snippets of information. Like I would like the knowledge that I gained, like even on Hex, like I was able to learn like what I know today because of like following the community on Twitter. It just opens like so many opportunities. For example, like brand streaming, like there's a ton of other streamers in the Hex community. So yeah, there's a lot going on. Definitely, definitely check it out if you are, watching the stream for the first time and you're just learning of just hearing about Hex for the first time. There's so many good community members. So when did you, I guess, Bran, when did you originally, and I'm sure you've been asked this question like 10,000 times, but when did you first get into when did you first become a part of the Hex community?
So here's the thing is, I mentioned I got into crypto in 2017, March 2017. It took me about a couple of months after that to realize like, oh, there's a whole crypto Twitter and things like that, and kind of found out about that through Reddit. But long story short, I'd been a pretty big Richard Hart follower in 2017, even though I didn't like do all of the things that he had kind of like not necessarily recommended, but at least threw out there. And anyways, I've been in Hex since day one, and I remember Richard always saying like, yeah, it's going to be released. We're just working on this and this and this. And long story short, yeah, after like a year of like delay or half a year of delay, the December 2nd or December 3rd, like Bitcoin snapshot date, I had sold all my my alt and consolidated all the Bitcoin into a couple addresses, and yeah, I've been here since day one. But here's the thing is, even though I have been in since day one, I've kind of been like always active in like the Hex on Twitter and stuff, but I didn't actually start like streaming until, and I didn't even intend on streaming. Like I was under an alias for like the whole time that I was in Litecoin and all these other cryptos. But Hex was kind of like the one crypto that like brought me out of my shell and like, all right, let's not do an alias. Let's use the real account. So maybe like 3 months into Hex, I started joining Discourse Syndicate RG3, his live streams.
Okay, yeah, very cool. Yeah, and that's pretty powerful too, because you're exactly what you mentioned here as far as like having an alias versus just being out there like for the person like you are, like that's pretty powerful in terms of like the network effect, because there's really not many that doesn't really exist like in many communities, truthfully. Like it's usually pseudo anonymous, so there's always like kind of a gray area there, that's always been kind of like the nature with crypto. But this is really like the first time I've seen so many streamers come out within a community in such a short period of time. And and plus, like I see there's the I know Joe Hexotic, he's setting up like a website people can basically look at like all the streaming that's going on within the community, which is pretty incredible. So yeah, I guess when you first set up your like your stakes, did you I guess like at the time, because I would imagine like early on it must have been pretty hard to like just set up even things like well, I would just say there's not as much information, but in terms of like staking ladders and like having like a better plan, I guess, for that, versus because that is the one advantage. Like I did get in a little bit, like definitely later than like the real OGs in this community, but I at least had like a bunch of community data I could go off of, like hex.vision, so I could see like staking ladders and all that. So I was like, okay, like this is pretty awesome.
No, that's true, man. Yeah, like the beginning, I don't know how long it took to finally get implemented, but yeah, when you would go to go.hex.com/stake, it used to never show like the calendar. So big payday was always on the certain day that it was, but you'd kind of never really know, like, is this actually, you kind of had to your point, like to your question, a lot of my stakes in the beginning were just kind of random. Like, and Hex was so cheap at that point that it was like, all right, let's screw with some Cuatro Cincos and throw in hindsight, it's actually a decent amount that's thrown out that long. And I didn't really do any ladder per se until I really started talking with like Dollar Cost and RG3 as well. But to your point, yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, now there's a whole bunch more development and statistical websites that you can look at. And to your point about the hex.vision, for anyone that doesn't know, it's really cool that Hex is one of like the really most transparent blockchains there are and things like that. And one of the things it allows people to do is see when the future stakes are expiring, and you can see their Ethereum address, what wallets they're tied to, how much they got, and kind of base your if you're gonna trade, you can base your trades off that, or if you're gonna do a staking ladder, you can do the same. So honestly, a lot of my stakes in the beginning were kind of just like throw it out there, or even for like the big payday were like pretty speculative, and I had a lot of like short. I was kind of weighted towards the short end. And then RG3 and myself got lunch one time, and when he was here in Seattle, and he was talking about that one of the strategies that he did is before big payday, if your stakes were at a 50% of the stake length time served, then you could end it and most likely get your principal back. And long story short, I did the same thing that he did, and ended a few million worth of hex that were kind of coming out like way after that were coming out too close to big payday and after big payday, and kind of disperse that in some of the future hex that I purchased throughout like a consistent ladder. So it's more calculated now than it was before, but it's still kind of like, I still kind of have stakes that are like, oh, my birthday, or like, girlfriend's anniversary, things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I mean, that's because that's one thing I have stakes coming out, like my big stakes there. So I did mostly like yearly stakes to start, and I was like, this ladder looks pretty good. And then I saw other like ladders in the community that looked beautiful, that just had like really good resolution, where they did things like monthly, so you'd always see like a bar on. I was looking at like Hex.live at the time, so that is actually, I actually am now filling in gaps, just because like it's more of like an aesthetics thing, where it's probably pretty silly. Like I could just put like, you know, stakes for the year, but I just like the way it looks, just seeing it basically spread out over like a very long period of time. So like as a starting point, mine was just basically like your traditional ladder, where it was literally like 1 year stakes coming out like yearly over the course of like 15 years, and then just like biasing things towards like the backside, so you get like a boost on like your average stake length. Because that's also pretty interesting, is like on the Staker app, you can see like what the average is, and then see what your average is relative to everybody else. And then since like the T-share cost is always increasing, like in terms of how much hex is required, when you get in at like a better rate, you just get basically a nice like overall like a much more effective payout like over that period of time. And that
Oh, it's totally true. And yeah, you kind of mentioned like filling in your stakes. Dollar Cost mentioned recently that like with some of his stakes that were similar to mine that are coming out like before the new year or towards the new year, that now the share rate's at such a point that you can gain T-shares and things like that. But I honestly don't think it'll be that way like a couple of years from now. The share rate might be too high that when you end a stake, and even if you do throw it out longer, you might not get it. So that's cool, man. That's a good strategy.
Yeah, and the other thing that's pretty interesting, I started looking at the penalties, at least since January of, so the penalties over the full year, so from January of 2020 up until now, with like the emergency end stakes. And the math, like I was just basically calculating how much hex you would get per T-share, and it came out like it's pretty impressive. Like if you staked over the course of the entire year, you were getting at least like 3% additional on top of like what you were already getting. So, which is pretty amazing, because like usually with staking coins, like for example, like there's staking coins that offer like 4% staking rewards, but you're getting like close to that staking reward just off emergency like end stake penalties. And then on top, and that's so it's a nice little bonus you get on top of like the 40% APY.
I agree, man. It's really intriguing the way that Richard designed. Well, the way that I mean, obviously, it's not like him the only one that was coding. He kind of had a team, but I think it was really interesting the way that him and maybe the other people kind of worked around some of the problems. Like one of the things Hex was actually designed to do was supposed to be for 50 years. It was supposed to be a lockup for 50 years. But part of something about the Ethereum, there was some sort of anyway, so something about Ethereum and like the fees and the calculation made it to where Richard and his team kind of had to condense it down to 15. But when you kind of mention like community and things like this, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not really in many other communities aside from just like I follow some people that are in other communities, but yeah, pretty much it's just like Hex, Ethereum, and then I follow some Bitcoiners as well. But with what Richard did and its setup being so much different than say some of the other like traditional cryptocurrencies or like ICOs of 2017, I think really like fostered a community that became what it was. Because you know, there was no necessarily like money asked from the beginning or things like that. Like Richard had he had put all the upfront cost and then kind of released it to the market fully launched. So when you kind of say like, yeah, you know, the community is powerful, and I agree it is. I think part of it's from some of the content that Richard's done, even from his first videos on like self-help, but also having it like fully complete and audited since launch was pretty cool. Because even some of the other like big companies and corporations, like someone in the Hex community on a stream earlier was saying like, yeah, even Google doesn't have 100% uptime, and I know it's only been like a year and a month or whatever that Hex has had 100% uptime, but if Hex continues to do what it's done throughout even just this last year, I think it's really got some places to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And the chart so far is playing out. It's playing out actually faster compared to what Ethereum did after the March sell off. So this is actually one thing I'll do is I'll actually flip this to a share screen because talking about price is awesome.
right. Showing it's different.
Yeah. So let's see here. So we have, all right. So here we have the price chart for Hex, and so this sell off here after the big payday. Let me flip this back to, yeah, that way it's a little easier to see. So this sell off here and this recovery. So the recovery phase, I mean, this really was a very short period of time. So this candle structure, like it's very similar to Ethereum after the COVID sell-off. In fact, Hex is now back above its major moving averages faster than Ethereum. And I think percentage gains, like if you do the percentage gains from the bottom to its current price, like it's also like exceeding like how much it's basically gone up since that period of time. So overall, yeah, I would say basically it's following that same kind of fractal very pretty well at this point. And the price floor is definitely shifting up here. Like I noticed, like even before big payday, this was kind of the price floor at the time. And then during the most aggressive sell-off, the price floor shifted up, which is always it's always a good sign. And this thing is, I think it's going to basically set up for a pretty explosive like January, February, like Q1 of 2021 is looking extremely good for price. And then for price prediction, so we'll go back, we'll go and like revisit the price predictions at least for the year 2021. So what's really cool is this macro level uptrends. So again, these uptrend lines are pretty, like truthfully, they're really just the best guess. Like nobody knows whether like it's going to fall, let's say this trend line, if it's going to fall one that's steeper or one that's like a little bit lower. So these can be very subjective when you're looking at it, but I will say this is really impressive that even for this trend line, it's really impressive that the price has basically bounced back above this trend line, which is it just shows like a lot of momentum in terms of price. So I think that is going to come during the year of 2021, and really for anybody new that's like watching like for cryptocurrency. So I guess I'm supposed to make the disclaimer like not financial advice, blah blah blah. But Hex is going to do it's going to do really well for 2021.
I agree, man, and yeah, you know it's I know when Dollar Cost was like finishing up with his course and whatnot, he had kind of jumped on your stream, and I think the other guy too, the voice my ambition was kind of in there talking about the polka dot stuff too, but yeah, one of the things in that stream that you did and even most recently that I saw with you was to your point, yeah, showing like the real big Ethereum, like the 10,000x, and then kind of correlating that to what Hex is kind of setting up to do, it seems, from technical analysis perspective. And I agree, man. Hex, Richard's mentioned this as well, but yeah, everything at the end of the day has market cycles and things like that. And yeah, it just seems that that Hex seems to do them more quickly. Like when you mention the big payday sell-off, like I've got 3 older brothers and I've got some people that are into Hex, and some of them, they're following it on a basis almost like you would, I don't know, almost like you would back in like 2017, and you know, you're looking at stuff on a daily basis, but yeah, when you really zoom out like you've done on you know, just the Uniswap version 1 chart, like a year and a month, it's really impressive to see the growth that it's had so far, and even the consolidation that it's had so far, given that its first year was its most volatile. I mean, we had the adoption amplifier, which was like 500 something. Actually, it was more because of self-referral, but it was like almost like 1 billion coins every single day that was being minted. And then we had the big payday itself as well. a lot of the stuff that kind of happened into the origin address staking. And I'm honestly really surprised that Hex is consolidated this quickly, but I'm happy because one thing Richard's mentioned before, like in a sell-off, a lot of people, they pretty much base like the actual candlesticks on the chart are kind of like their emotions, and like the lower it goes, the more that they fear that they'll be like the last ones to sell, and it'll all go down. But anyways, I'm happy the way that it consolidated, and I know a couple of people that kind of bought the dip or bought pretty close to the dip, myself included, a little bit, and it's a good feeling when you're in the right product.
Yeah, absolutely. And that it just kind of goes to show, like, even if you look at the last couple of weeks, those that bought the dip are already up in such a short period of time. So it's always counterintuitive, like on the chart, like because oftentimes like the emotions overpowers them, and then they freeze. Basically, it's almost like a deer caught in headlights, basically, when it comes to like just pressing the buy button after you have these huge sell-offs, because you're actually buying at lower risk levels. Like if you have a bunch of successive red candles, like you're actually buying in at a lower risk level, even though it looks like things are like the end of the world. Because that's always the mentality, like during dips. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin. It's the same thing with Ethereum. The bear market was a huge shakeout, even for those two coins that are now considered blue chips. So and it was a very long bear market. Like Ethereum was extremely volatile during its whole bear market. It revisited sub $100 levels twice. Like it went up from 80 to 365 during 2019, and then it crashed back to $80 briefly, and then now it's at $700. So you just see the volatility that's always going to be there at this stage in the market, because crypto is such a young market.
Oh, dude, you're totally right. I mean, I remember it was actually like the timing was just impeccable. But when the adoption amplifier was going out, and some of the days, I kind of did like a majority of my adoption amplifier, like the first 90 days or something like that. And some of those days, yeah, like Ethereum was like $80, and I mean, you're always kind of hoping that it goes lower and that you get a better deal. But yeah, to your point, sub 100 Ethereum, and then Hex was like, it had like consistent, like at least a couple of weeks where it was over a million Hex per Ethereum. And anyways, yeah, if for anyone that caught those days that were, you chuck in Ethereum or X amount of capital, you're doing really well now, even if you're just sitting liquid. And to your point about Hex and the big payday and things like this, one of the really cool things about it is 40% APY. I have a feeling that's not going to be in Hex forever, but for the people right now that bought at a certain price, and then you're earning that interest, and you have price appreciation, it's two factors that definitely multiply by each other, which makes some pretty big numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't, do you know if there's any like predictive models in the community as far as like how big people are speculating in terms of like payouts, assuming like you have a certain amount of T shares and then making assumptions on like emergency unstake penalties? Because there was one, there was a really good source of information that Motley sent over to me a little just a couple weeks ago, as far as just some information over like a 10 to 15 year period. And there was some really good information from somebody named John Wick, I think is, okay. I don't know if that's like their real name or if it's an alias, but sure. I think they were actually on like one of RG3's streams recently on Discord Syndicate. So he had some really interesting stuff as well for like macro level predictions for Hex, in terms like even things like the T-share price relative to Hex. So because like yesterday when we were looking at it on RG3 stream, we were looking at it like for like the T-share to ETH ratio. That looks like it's basically setting up another big impulsive wave that could take it up to, let's say, like 1 ETH per T-share. That I think is going to happen pretty likely sometime in 2021. But then there was also these other predictions in terms of how much the T share would cost relative to Hex. So there was like two different like models. Like there was like relative to Hex, and then relative, in this case, like relative to ETH.
Right. Yeah, no, I've seen some of those predictions. I mean, to answer your question, as far as like with the factored in penalties and stuff like that, not that I've seen necessarily. I mean, I can link you to a Google Drive of Big Pep. Have you seen him in the Hex community, Big Pep specifically? Or?
I've seen a couple of his videos. Yeah, so I do recognize the name and who you're referring to.
Okay, well, yeah, he's got. If you haven't seen him, I can definitely send you a link. I can send you a link to like his drive of all of these like spreadsheets, these Excel spreadsheets that he has done. The thing I'll say about it is, like I said, it doesn't really like factor into my knowledge, like the end stakes and things like that. But it does have some like variables that you can kind of tweak to kind of give you like future possibilities. And I think I've seen what you're talking about as well, where like you mentioned, we were kind of talking about like T-share versus Ethereum, but I've seen that I've seen similar information where yeah, it's talking about like how much Hex it's going to be for a T-share, and some of these numbers like 10 years out are quite dramatic. Like we'll see how it actually plays out, but some of the things I was seeing was like 1 million Hex per T-share, like 10 years or like 15 years out in the future. And it's just crazy that price is always going up.
Yeah, that absolutely. Cause like right now, like I recall when I was looking at I'll just call it the John Wick model. It looks like it was like, it's not really linear, but just like, since it's not super steep yet, you could say it's like kind of linear a little bit right now. But then at a certain point, there was a huge ramp up, and then that's where I'm like, whoa, like this could get like really. I mean, because we're getting these valuations right now on what I would consider like the steady like growth phase right now on the T-share price, where it's like it's over time, it's gradually getting more and more steep until you get like that huge exponential run up. So it's pretty amazing. Like even right now, we're seeing these prices on the T-share before we're even at that ramp up phase. So when people, when there was the conversations like as far as it being, let's say, like over a Bitcoin per T-share, like that's totally because like we're not even at the ramp up phase, and it's gonna be pretty wild because like the chart on the T-share to ETH chart is already having these big impulsive waves, and then like you just get this huge ramp up at some point where it's basically just like this huge jump on the chart. That's like, it's mind blowing just how expensive it could be just to get like a single T-share. Because I can even say like I've been staking for like a couple months now. So I've been staking for like 4 months, and the amount of interest that I'm getting like is absurd. Like it's like I'm adding up, like if I add up, let's say the staking rewards on like other holdings that I have, it's like it's only like it's not even 25%. And I've been staking that for longer. Like these are like I've been staking like other stuff for longer periods of time, and it makes up a fraction compared to like what I'm getting now staking Hex. So it's pretty awesome. And I think that is also going to play into like the long-term strategy, because I do have this, I think it's going to be less in the Hex community, because I kind of see, generally speaking, like overall the Hex community is like really disciplined, and it kind of attracts like a very unique type of investor. But over like a long period of time, it's going to be interesting to see like how many, let's say, whales remain in the whale bracket, or perhaps get bumped down to shark, or vice versa, where like a shark gets bumped up to a whale, depending on how they plan out like their long-term strategy. So super early right now, but you can at least like basically plan out like over, I mean, really honestly, like basically a lifetime with this thing. Like it's incredible. So I already have like literally plans. I'm not even kidding. I'm like 2040. I'm gonna have these stakes going out, because like it's almost like a leap. Like it's like a leapfrog effect. Like you get to your stake, you can peel off a little bit. That's like the term Richard Hard mentioned, is like you can peel off and then basically restake later, and basically push that out. you know, however long, depending on like your life situation at the time. So I think we're going to definitely see like a lot of that, maybe around like somewhere closer to like 2030.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally know what you mean, man. And yeah, I know Richard's kind of mentioned that. Yeah, like the skimming off the top, or even dollar cost with kind of like some of the recent stakes that he's ended. And same thing for me, because you know I've got stakes going out all the way 15 years, but I've also got stakes that are shorter term as well. But it is cool that with Hex, to your point, the interest is incredible. And when we had like when you have like volatility, such as like a really big volatile event, such as like Big Payday, and there was a lot of people, you know, getting scared with the origin address doing what it did. It's cool that for the people, to your point, that just did what they said they were going to do. You know, maybe you didn't put in like the whole house on one stake, but it's cool for yeah, those of us that even have shorter stakes and got some of that reward. How quick that interest adds up. I mean, it adds up significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and it's
nice.
yeah, and there's if you go to, actually, I'll put this in the chat as well. There's a really good resource to see how much Hex you're averaging per T-share.
Okay.
And I think right now it's somewhere close to 6 Hex per T-share. It's maybe high 5s, low 6. Let's see, graph.
Yeah. I know you can go to graphx.rocks.
Yeah, that's the one.
Go to hex.com. Okay.
See, there's some do you see Hex price dropping again? I mean, if we're talking about what we saw after the big payday, I think that was the opportunity in my opinion. Like, I mean, I'm not, you know, by no means am I like a price oracle or anything like that, but it's, to me, that was like the most extreme sell off. And the thing is, like, what's not really being considered right now is the whoever, let's say, is committed long term with the big payday bonus. The emergency unstaked penalties are more severe now. So effectively, whatever the let's say the unstake penalty for like a 1-year stake before big payday was lower before the big payday, but since the interest, like since they got that additional payout, it makes the penalty higher. So there's a greater incentive for people that got in before big payday and didn't get shaken out. There's a greater incentive for them to hold, because depending on, you know, how long they're staking out, they can seriously prune off their, like, a huge part of their stack. Like, let me actually pull up the staker app right now, because I can actually see what the penalty is for, let's say, like a 1-2 year, things like that. This is why you don't like, it's your bet. Just, you know, wait until your stake ends, and then you can, because the market volatility, like, there's always going to be huge volatility in the market. There's going to be people doing like emergency unstakes to try to like take profits or whatever. But like, now the penalties are going to be much higher to do that, at least for anybody that has those stakes before the big payday. I think now.
Oh, I agree completely. And yeah, I was kind of looking in the meantime on the payout per T-shirt. Yeah, I guess for let's see, I guess we had 8.389 from what I'm seeing on go.hex.com. So yeah, you kind of have to back check that sometimes on the graphx.rocks. But to your point about kind of people ending stakes in the future and things like that, like it never hurts, honestly, to have some liquid, and depending on what your stack is, you can kind of have a certain percentage liquid. But yeah, I mean, I personally keep $4,000 or $5,000, something like that, like a little bit less than $1 million liquid if I ever need for like an emergency.
Yeah, it's like even the emergency unstake penalty right now. So this is a stake that I have. This one goes until, let's see. Actually, I want to look at the 2022 stakes here. Oh yeah, it's really high. So this stake that I have here, it's towards the tail end of 2021. So this stake is This is actually right around like November of like 2021. The penalty to like unstake that is 71%. So like even for the short term stakes, like people are just you have to basically like you're committed to those stakes, which is awesome because the whole idea is like you get the big payday bonus, but you can't unstake that and dump that into the market without like severely crippling like your entire stack. So it's pretty awesome, and I think that's also why we're getting we also get like a much bigger expansion like on the price rises, since there's that less selling pressure taking place.
Right, man. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's honestly something that's never really existed. Like a little bit before Hex, I kind of followed a little bit of the proof of stake and things like this, but yeah, to my knowledge, yeah, Hex is kind of like one of the first DeFi products to exist that yeah really launched a like a hard lock stake, to your point. And yeah, I mean, if you're saying that you're going to be locked out for 10 years and things like that, and you all of a sudden get second thoughts, you're going to be kicking yourself if you do end that stake, because you're going to completely nuke it based on how much time you've served. So it's a really interesting dichotomy where yeah, you know, longer pays better. I mean, if you stake up to 10 years, then you can get up to 3 times the shares and earn more interest via your shares. But on the other hand, if you don't do what you said you did, then yeah, those people, they're going to be not rewarded.
Yeah, and that's it's gonna be I'm expecting like a lot of assaults from those people too later on, where they do like an emergency unstake sell, and then it goes up like much higher than they were expecting, because like that's like the nature of, you know, this is why you're better off not really getting caught up on like just short-term volatility or consolidation, because the people that are going to make like really life-changing gains in this market that aren't, let's say, like the founders of the project, or those that basically holds through this entire, because we're just like entering the early stages of a bull market cycle. So when these things happen, they're very, very fast. So unless you basically were, you know, dollar cost averaging or you know, getting your fair share when the prices were, or you miss this huge run up that happens over like a 2-month period. Like the prices could basically 10x like really easily over like a 2-month window. This is just what crypto does. Just look at the Ethereum, what Ethereum did during its first cycle. Either you bought like when there was a lot of volatility, when there was like downside on the price. If you bought like at those levels, the price then basically shot up and did like a 10 or 20x during its expansion afterwards, and it does it so fast. So, but that's like the nature of the game. Like there's people that really, you know, you have the people that believe and they buy when there's the opportunity, and then those are the people that are also rewarded, while everybody else is just chasing. So, and
yeah, dude, it's so true. Like I said, I've got few older brothers and some people that I know, and some people are kind of like for Christmas, like 3 months ago, I took $100 and locked up their Hex for like a year for like next Christmas and their birthday. But long story short, one person that I know, they were in Hex speculating just for the big payday, and their strategy was just so shitty. It just wasn't thought out at all. They didn't even stake. They had kind of timed like, oh, I can kind of sell into the pump, which would have been the penny and a half. Like that was clearly the time. But long story short, they sold it like, they sent me a text. They sold it like 55, I think 55% of a penny, something like that. And you know, they're crying the whole time it goes down to like 20%, and then. But yeah, one thing that you mentioned and one thing that Richard talked about is yeah, that is the time for the opportunity. I mean, it's such a volatile market, and they say like buy when there's blood on the streets and stuff like that. But to those, it's so easy in hindsight, not necessarily in hindsight, but it's so easy for like your average Joe that sees someone that got in early, or someone that made smart investing decisions, to say, oh yeah, you're just lucky, or you know, this and that. But in reality, like a lot of those people, including some of the people that I know that say I'm lucky, those are the same freaking people selling when it was the time to buy, you know?
yeah, absolutely. And that's like that's always and I'm sure we'll hear that, over and over again through this entire bull run. Is that's like kind of the typical response. Oh, you got lucky. Like your timing just happened to be right. Like that's like completely not true, because the people that are accumulating, the amount of shit that they're going through, like from there's all this there's FUD, blah blah blah. So you have all this nonsense that's going on on the social media side, until you finally get this huge expansion phase. So it's their psychology, they were able to get past, they're able to get past a lot of the psychology, because really a lot of investing comes down to psychology. That's really the most really the biggest factor is are you actually gonna buy when there's the opportunity, or are you going to be scared to buy? And that's going to happen over and over again.
I mean, I agree completely. And here's where it's even to that point, but accentuated so much more, or even more dramatic is, we kind of mentioned opportunity, and if you've got enough preparation leading up to an opportunity, but so many people, especially in crypto, and honestly, I did this in 2017 with buying crypto with credit cards, which was just stupid. but my point is this: is you got some people that maybe they did throw in the house, or they did buy on a credit card and stuff like this, and so their emotions are much more higher, because now they've got leverage, or now they might get called and stuff like that. And so if you were, I don't know, if you just do smart, if you prepare and you do smart investing decisions from the get-go, someone in the chat mentioned something about dollar cost averaging and things like that. They can really help you in the long run, as opposed to doing this short-term gamble of oh, should I just put in 10,000 today? How do you fight FUD? Yeah, exactly. Time lock it. And that's the point to what you were saying is, yeah, well, I don't know if you were saying it, but long story short, people, when they're not in something, that's when they'll FUD the bag, or that's when they'll talk shit about it. And it's pretty clear to see if someone's gotten completely all the way out. And that is the unique thing about such a hard time lock, is some of these other staking coins, before I got into Hex, was playing around with Tezos and some of these other ones that I didn't really know much about, but those you could just unlock at any time, and especially on Coinbase or any application. So to the fact that you can be locked for 15 years, why would you be talking down your bag if that might play a future detriment? It's quite a unique opportunity for people to be locked for 15 years, because you don't want to talk bad about your bags. You want to pump your bags.
Yeah, absolutely. And for even back to Tezos, I think their yearly staking reward, it's 5%, which is that's only 2% more than what you get with Hex penalties. So it's already competing with this stuff just from the penalties alone. It's insane. So we actually have another Hexican joining this stream here. So we got here Motley Investor. How's it going?
What's up, guys?
Motley,
pretty good.
So I probably missed everything you guys have been saying, so I'll try not to repeat too much, and I'll just kind of hang back for a second. But Hexicans are having their end of the year stream right now, so I was trying to moderate in there.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw Cabana doing that, and that's one of the really cool things. We were talking about it on a stream that I was doing, that you've got a good problem when there's too many people to keep up with, or there's too many streams at the same time, and there's always that point of okay, I don't want to go and this guy's going, and try not to do that, but at a certain point, with the amount of numbers that you get in, that's just inevitable. And so it's really cool to see that yeah, we it's just cool to see all the people coming out, and even yourself, Motley, you did a great stream today, especially on your first one. And it's cool to see all the people coming out. I mean, LookIntoCrypto said that Hex is kind of before Hex, you had a lot of anonymity and pseudonyms and stuff like this. And that was kind of the crypto that I was used to, and these other communities and markets. But it's cool that with Hex, since it is the data is honest, the founder is honest, the way that he did everything. It's cool, the community that it fostered, because it's a really strong one.
Yeah, it's getting to the point now where I'm missing. Not only am I missing Hex content, I'm missing amazing Hex content. I still have to catch up on streams where like Firebun, the developer of Staker app, came on Funding Jim's channel. Like I only got like part of the way through that. I still have to go back through all that. You guys are going right now, so like I wanted to help you guys out. So like I'll go back and I'll watch the Hexican stream at the same time I'm helping moderate in the channel there. Like it's one after the other. I went before Hexo today because Cabana reached out to me and let me know they was doing the end of the year stream, and I was like, okay, cool. So I moved mine before, then Hexo, then Cabana's, then you guys, and then Cabana invited me to go on there, and I told him no, I'll just handle in the chats right now because I think RG3 is driving, and then Coffee probably had some stuff come up with work, but it's just the community's like nothing else. It's completely unrivaled when it comes to the content, the entrepreneurs, the stuff that people are building around and for Hex to promote Hex. It's absolutely mind-boggling.
Exactly. I mean, the other thing is there's always some bad apples, and I was talking with someone the other day that I'm a really firm believer that you are only as strong as your weakest link, and I've got 3 older brothers. My parents were always like pretty good about like the family unit, so Hex kind of really stood out when everyone really got behind each other's back and things like that. And sure, there's always things that come up every now and then, and even I was kind of part of that on my most recent stream by having someone on that I probably shouldn't have in hindsight, but it's cool. I mean, we all learn together. We all if people are actually staked like they claim they are, then yeah, we're in this together.
Yeah, I'm looking at this chat right now, and I see like KC asks like how high is Hex gonna go, and it's like 50 cents, and I think that's our mark for the end of the year 2021. I think probably somewhere between about 35 and 50 cents by the end of 2021. So you're talking, I would almost say I'm fairly confident in a potential easy 50x by the end of the year, which is absolutely insane to say. And then not only that 50% on your way there, you're going to be collecting insane interest rates. Yeah.
Yeah, just imagine like whatever interest you got now, and you multiply it by 10, 15, 20, 25.
It literally just makes you giddy and just puts like a shit-eating grin on your face. Like when you think about it, it's like, okay, all other cryptos, you have price appreciation, everything. But when you're talking about 40% of not only just interest, but like from a decentralized entity, no third party involved, you don't have to trust anyone with your coins. The way the staking feature and burning the coins works, you're reducing the supply on top of that when you stake. Like it's just such a beautiful mechanism. It just makes you smile every freaking day that you just collect more and more. Like when I've been these past couple of days when I've been opening Staker app, and for you guys that don't know, Staker app is I'm sure you guys have probably already talked about it, but it's by 2 of the developers in the Hex community, and it's gonna absolutely change the game. Right now, it's just more of kind of like monitor your wallets, your Hex wallets, but eventually you're actually going to be able to stake on the app. They're going to have a fiat direct ramp from fiat, obviously directly to Hex. Like it's going to change the game of crypto when it comes to onboarding. It's going to be absolutely amazing. But opening that app, oh my god.
Yeah, and I think is it Steph and Firebun that are working together? Because I know Steph is working on Staker app, but I think Firebun's also working closely with Steph on that as well. Or
yeah, so they were kind of like those 2 developers in the community that got together and just had a beautiful baby together. But Steph did Hex.live, which is, I would probably argue, was one of the most beautiful websites that we had in Hex. Everything was just well done, pleasing to the eye, amazing information. And then Firebun did Hex.vision. So that gives you all your statistics, all your analytics, all your information. And those 2 came together and they did Staker app. I'm pretty sure Firebun's doing most of the financial backing for it. And then him and Steph are going back and forth on the code. And it's unlike anything else that anyone's ever created. And the cool thing is it literally just came from 2 community members. It wasn't outsourced by Richard or anything like that. It just to show you the power of the Hex community, we have 2 top-notch devs that happen to get into this project, saw the value, and Steph just quit his 6-figure job at Google, working full-time on Staker app. I'm pretty sure Firebun is still almost 100% on Staker app now. So it's just, it's unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
They mentioned. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you can go ahead. Sorry, you can go ahead, Brand.
Oh, I'm sorry. They mentioned you mentioned having to like go back and catch up on streams, and yeah, I've had to do the same thing. It's like the only content that I watch anymore, which is why I can keep up a little bit is because of that. But anyways, yeah, Firebun mentioned that Steph is kind of like the CEO, and it was kind of his idea, and that Steph actually came to Firebun, but yeah, Firebun's kind of like the CTO that he mentioned in the Funding Gym interview. And the other thing that was cool, I mean, I think Motley is part of like the testing bed, so you can only talk so much. But one of the cool things, at least that Firebun was talking about on Gary's show, Funding Gym, was that yeah, you'll be able to. I think he said you can transfer stakes, and you can like give hex via the app, and to his point, you can stake via the app, and there might be some things in the future where you can have a fiat onboard via the app. Like a lot of these things, to his point, also are just voluntary, and that's when you know that something's good, when someone's working for free to develop something like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're smart guys for sure. And Steph is after these past 2 airdrops now. So we had Uni first, and then we had the one I missed, unfortunately, the 1-inch. But Steph on both of those probably had somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 that he got from those airdrops. And each time he's publicly shown where he converts it all to hex and then stakes it out for a Quattro Cinco stake. Like that's the most baller thing ever. Every time, like takes those free airdrops, about 20 to 30 grand, because he's got a crap ton of wallets, and he gets these airdrops and then just absolutely just launches hex out into the future. And if you guys haven't looked into the math of what those stakes can do, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So what have you guys been talking about? What have I missed? Where are we at?
Yeah. So we're well. So Brand gave a good intro, like where he first got into the Hex community. So Brand's like a true OG. So is Motley, and then so he just kind of went over like where we first got into Hex. We went into like the T shares, like that's actually, dude, I could go on and on about that one with like the T share price. Like
yep,
we were going into detail on that. So we were just talking about like two different models for that. There was the one that Motley had info from. It was from that from someone named John Wick. I've seen him on RG3's streams before, where it was like it was calculated out relative to Hex, and then the other one where it's like the T share relative to the ETH price based on the chart history that we have so far, where it's basically doing those 10x moves like on the T share to ETH ratio before you even get this like that huge exponential run up, where it starts to get like more and more exponential once like some of the later stakes start to come out.
Yeah, it's nuts. They a couple of the smart guys and guys that mess around with modeling and stuff, they have come out with some charts, because there was a little bit of misinformation, like come big payday, because the OA did stake. I don't know if you guys have gone to the OA yet, but the OA did stake beforehand, and so that did reduce everyone's big payday. I think we ended up receiving somewhere between like 30 and 35% on big payday. But yeah, so our original models, we were saying stuff because it really was on track. Like we were looking at 80x on a 10-year stake just on your principal loan, and then you were looking at about a 250x or higher. These were the conservative numbers: 80x, 250x for a 15-year stake. I think they've remodeled it, and I think we're looking at somewhere between like 25x on a 10-year stake and about 100x on a Quattro Cinco stake, which is absolutely nuts even still when you think about price appreciation and accumulating interest over all those years, and emergency and stake penalties.
Right. Yeah, the emergency on stake penalties, because I was looking back at, like, we were taking a look at the penalties on Hex.Vision, and over the past year there's been 1.4 billion, just shy of 1.4 billion with end stake penalties. And who knows, maybe we just get to that like a nice 1.4 before the new year. And I was seeing basically a payout of roughly, like if you stake during that whole time period, about 64 hex per T share. And then when I was just adding up the numbers, it was like an additional like 3% like bonus on top of like what you're already getting. And like that 3% is like comparable to like, that's like a normal staking reward for like other coins. So I was like, I was like,
it's a drop in a bucket for us. Like we don't even notice it. Yeah, it's going to get nuts. And I think you and I at Dollar Cost have talked about this off stream, but like the emergency end stake penalties, like people are not giving them as much because we haven't had that many, but I mean, it's still a decent amount. Over 1 billion hex is a lot, but people don't realize as the years go on and we go through these cycles, bear and bull, like we always do in crypto, when some of these stakes that have been going on for years, because you have to make it to 50% of your stake before you can unstake and stop cutting in. You'll cut into your principal if you emergency end stake before the 50% mark. And so once you start seeing some of these, and it will happen, you'll see some of these stakes that have been accumulating 40% interest for years, for 1, 2, 5, 10 something years, and they're like, yep, screw it. Price appreciation's enough. Hex is at $5. I'm going to get my principal back and then some interest. And they emergency unstake, and you get 4, 5, 6 years of accumulated interest that gets distributed to the staker class. And it's a large stake. Like it's gonna rain, especially if you've been in early from this like first year and a little bit onward. Like you're going to have a very large portion of that pie to boot as time goes on. And so you're going to start seeing some crazy, like towards the end, people underestimate how much hex you're going to actually accrue within the last couple months of your stake on the longer stakes. Once you start getting out to that 10 to 15 year mark, within those last couple of months to a year of your stake, you are going to accumulate so much interest because you're going to be the pie is going to shrink over the years as share price continues to go up. People are not able to buy as much. It takes a lot more economic mass to get a T share. And so the pie is going to continue to shrink as stakes get out and your longer stakes stay in. And when those emergency end stake penalties years down the road come out, your stakes are going to get so fat. Like I think people truly underestimate how big emergency end stakes can get.
Oh yeah. Dollar Cost mentioned that, man. Like, and I know Look Into Crypto was saying the same thing on like just like the hex share rate, and like, I mean, right now it's I don't know like 16,000 and some change for one T share just if you stake it for like 1 day. But yeah, he was kind of talking about like the S curve and kind of how John Wick was showing some models in the Discord Syndicate show, and it's really incredible what Hex can do. Like. Already in 1 year, but let alone 5, 10, 15 years. Like if you're maxing out those shares at a 10-year rate, that's great. But if you only stake for 10 years, then you're just getting the max for 10 years. But you can extend that maximum for another 5. And to Motley's point, not to mention the actual end stakes. I mean, I know it's actually quite brutal by the way that it's calculated because. To my knowledge, even if you end stake like 1 day before, I think you still lose up to like what 50% of the interest, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. No, so so there's a calculation. If you just go to the Hex Telegram channel and you just type in lay ! You'll get the layman's guide, and it'll give you the actual calculation to do calculate your penalties. Or if you just want to be easy, you can go on Staker app and it runs the calculation for you. But you have to be at least 50% of your stake before you start cutting into your principal. 90 days minimum you have to accumulate. So if you do less than 90 days, obviously it's gonna cut into your principal right off the bat. And then obviously you have to be really careful if you have the big payday bonus, because big payday bonus is counted as interest. So part of that equation accounts for the interest. So a lot of people that receive that big payday bonus and they try to end their stakes early, they can just and that's pretty much what we've seen, people not doing their research, and they are essentially self-destructing their accounts because they either think they're good or they really didn't do the research and they just thought, well, if I punch in this really long stake number, I get so many more shares, I get so much more hex, and then I'll just end it afterwards. And those guys probably did the least amount of research. And it's one of the few cryptocurrencies that actually holds you accountable for locking your coins. Like I've seen a lot of these staking features where you can stake your coins and you don't have to fill your commitment. You can pull them back out at any point. So there's no real incentive to keep your coins there. Price appreciation moves up enough where you hit your point where you're comfortable. It's like, I'm 50x, I'm good. I'll take my profit now, or I'll take my entire position off the table. Hex doesn't do that. Like you will be forced to sit there, and price could go up to $1, and I can't touch a lot of my stakes. A lot of people might like freak out and be like, "Oh my god, that sounds awful." Blah blah blah. No, like any solid crypto project will show that it'll stand the test of time. And Hex 100,000%, which is kind of weird because you wouldn't think you'd be able to say that in crypto, but I can confidently say that in crypto that Hex will be here through the bull, through the bear, through the bull, through the bear, and it's going to take that #1 spot. And I'm more than happy to watch everyone make good short-term games, make a nice 50x this year alone probably, and I'll be more than happy with my stakes that are still locked up, gaining interest. And then when that does come time for them to be unstaked, then I'll happily collect whatever price appreciation is and my interest. And then on top of that, I'm not going to just throw away and sell that miner. So like T-shares act as a miner in Hex. So the more Hex you have, it allows you to get more T-shares, and you're generating that income for you perpetually, nonstop. So even when my stakes come undone, especially in this early phase, I'm right now I'm sending out 100% of it. My plan was to initially, restake the principal, sell the interest, but even now, like I'm like, fuck that. I want to increase my shares during this time period, because after a couple of years, the T-share price will always continue to go up, and it'll start ramping up enough where I'm not getting enough Hex back to make up for the T-share price going up. And so I'm taking advantage over these next couple of years and continuing to build my shares in the pool so I can generate that like long-term income perpetually and not lose my position in the staker class. And that's one of the beautiful speculative little stickiness in some of the Hex game theory that a lot of people that are new to Hex haven't quite gotten to yet.
This will probably be the last thing I have to say before I have to get out of here, just to a little bit of time constraints. But yeah, let's see. Look into crypto. Are you also Wasabi? Is that?
Yeah, that's
okay.
that was
He was.
I was
Formerly known.
Formally,
okay.
yeah.
I wasn't too sure. I know sometimes because there's the other guy. Oh, maybe I'm thinking of Charlie. But so anyways, yeah, I know. Appreciate you having me on the show, and same thing for Motley coming on. I mean, we'll definitely have to make this happen again, and my schedule's a little bit more open on the weekend if you ever want to do like a little bit longer stream or come on mine. But yeah, the last thing I'll say is yeah, the staking's great, the gains are great. Everyone wants the price to go up, but yeah, if you're gonna do something, especially in Hex, it's not like other cryptos where you can just stake your Tezos and unstake it and all of a sudden get 100% of the staking rewards. It's something that you really should take the time to develop a strategy, develop a staking ladder, look at the length of time that you want to be investing in. I mean, every investment has a time horizon and market cycles and your budget and finances. So I would just recommend for anyone that might not say, you're doing stakes or you're looking into setting up ladders and things like that. My recommendation from what I've heard wouldn't necessarily be to just do one stake for a Quattro Cinco like I've seen recommended like way back when. I think you should, from what I do, at least what I do is ladder out the amount that you're putting in and vary it out between different times. And that way you can kind of have like a perpetual consistent income, almost like a second paycheck, especially when they're multiple years out. But yeah, that's the last thing I'll say. I got to get going. Got to go hang out with the girlfriend a little bit before bed. But thank you, man, so much for having me on Wasabi or Look Into Crypto. And same thing for you, Motley. I know, nice dude. That's good. I know. You had your first stream today and kind of appreciate kind of what you talked about, and just in general, yeah. I mean, sometimes there are, I guess, bad actors or people that might not have the most like long-term outlook when it comes to Hex or motivation, or even just in general. So I kind of appreciate you and Johnny doing your streams, and yeah, in the future live streams, I'll still have plenty of people on, but maybe 9 or 10 people at one time can kind of get too much, and especially when you got people that I should have been more cautious with in the first place. So I appreciate at least, I mean, even with myself, and there's someone named Papa Boner in the Hex community. He was kind of making like a one-off joke that I called him out on. It's good for Hexicans, like if we're gonna be together, or like, you know, somewhat of like a family, or like, you know, friendships at least. It's the friends that I've always enjoyed the most have been the ones to call me on my shit, or the ones to you know, push you where other people might not give that criticism. So appreciate everyone doing what they're doing, and same thing for someone like yourself, you know, Wasabi or Look Into Crypto. I know there is a lot of animosity sometimes between like the Hexican maximalists and some of these other staking and Celsius and all these different things, but yeah, I appreciate you having me on my show, or you having me on your show, and you know, you guys being open-minded, because sometimes it's hard to consider something seriously when you've got like some serious banter and you've got some serious people saying adverse things. So appreciate all you guys, you know, being open-minded and continuing to have Hexicans on. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thanks for joining. What I went ahead and did for anybody that's new to this stream, make sure to give Bran a follow on Twitter. Hopefully I got the link here right. But
Totally,
yeah. But yeah, give him a follow. He's streaming all the time on DLive. So really great community member, and really glad to have you on the stream, Bran.